Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. Bob Dernier is about as Kansas City baseball as you can get for somebody who never played for the Kansas City Royals. Raised in Raytown, Missouri, he moved up the ranks from Little League Baseball to Raytown South High School to Casey Stengel League, on to Longview Community College, on to the minor leagues where he led the minor leagues 3 times in stolen bases, and then on to the major leagues for what he modestly says might be an unlikely 10-year career in the major leagues. Some with the Philadelphia Phillies at the beginning and at the end, and 3 years in the middle with the Chicago Cubs, which were the halcyon days for Bob Dernier, and he still has the delight of going back to Chicago and get treated like a returning hero. 1984 Gold Glove winner, the first Gold Glove winner in center field for the Chicago Cubs in their entire history. So a lot of milestones along the way for the speedy Bob Dernier, who has always had a bright and upbeat look at his 10-year Major League career and considers himself grateful to have had that decade in the bigs. It's a great story. It's a fun story. He's a fun guy, has a smile on his face almost all the time. My pleasure to speak with Bob Dernier on Kansas City Profiles, brought to you by Easton Roofing. Next. We're here with Joe Spiker of Easton Roofing. And Joe, oftentimes people will wait to replace their roof until there is a weather event. What should they know about that?
Well, Danny, the important thing to remember is if you're going to turn in a claim to your insurance company, you want to make sure that you actually have damage on your home. If you turn in a claim to your insurance company and they send an insurance adjuster out, it's going to be a claim whether they give you $1 or $10,000. So it's important to make sure that you actually have damage on your home before you turn that claim in. And all you have to do is give us a call. We'll come out, take a look, and make sure there's real damage, and we'll tell you if there's not. Maybe it's just a small repair and it's not worth a claim. So it's always smart to get somebody you trust to make sure there's damage before you turn in a claim.
Quality advice and guidance from Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
Before you spend your time and money going after an MBA, ask yourself why. Is it so you can tell people you got your MBA? So you can add a line to your CV? So you can call it a CV instead of a resume? Truth is, any MBA will do that. On the other hand, if your goal is to learn how to successfully manage and grow a business with real-world insights from experienced professionals, well, consider getting your MBA from Park University. Our low student-to-teacher ratio gives you personalized attention. And our face-to-face and online classes offered in 8-week terms are designed with working professionals like you in mind. No wonder the Kansas City Business Journal ranks Park University as the top MBA program in the area. Classes begin June 10th at all 4 KC area locations: Parkville, Downtown, Independence, and Lenexa. Visit park.edu to get started.
I was duped, and I recommend you be next. For better or worse, the ultra-realistic impression of me sits now in my wife's office to spook her on a daily basis. So what is Doob? D-O-O-B. It's the keepsake of a lifetime, a 3D-generated, incredibly lifelike figurine. 66 cameras take an image at exactly the same moment in any pose, and state-of-the-art 3D technology transforms that into exact replicas of you, anyone you know or love, a pet, whomever is close to your heart. Create lifetime memories with a Doob. Visit their Facebook page at Doob 3D Kansas City, or better yet, see their incredible creations. Visit their location down on the plaza in the heart of it at 231 West 47th Street in KC Mo. Doob, be next. Bob, you're Kansas City through and through, and eventually went to high school at Raytown South. Are you a Raytown guy all along?
Well, I was born in Kansas City. My parents moved to Raytown when I was an infant and injected me into the Raytown school district, which was a pretty young district then, and I've been a Mayberry, Danny.
It's grown and grown and grown, obviously, and I know that eventually you would play all sports and everything else. When did you think you really caught the bug?
Well, my dad was a sporting goods buyer, so he would go to New York and buy product for a couple different organizations here. Gateway was one of them. I remember Gateway Sporting Goods. And he was sportsy too, as well as my mom. They both played.
Yep.
Played softball in the weekday nights, and so my sister and I grew up with that being part of our infancy, if you will, our toddlers, at ball games. And natural gravity for me was to pretty much every ball my dad rolled out in the living room, and he liked all sports, including golf and of course football, baseball, basketball. I even took up tennis for a while as a young guy just for fun. There's not many sports that I didn't play, I guess, or didn't try to play. I played hockey as well.
Wow, hockey here. That's interesting. So when did you feel like you had some aptitude for it?
Well, I think Raytown Little League was a real productive venture for those parents in that era in the 60s. I think because a lot of them played, a lot of them were sports fans of sort. The dads were great coaches because of it. I think they took the time to do it. They thought it was good for their kids, boys and girls alike. And so, that sort of was a natural, and I think it was a social event for the parents, not just the fact the kids were playing, but they would gather at Raytown Little League. Coleman Living Good Park in Raytown was the football stadium, and we played Kansas City, Missouri 3-2 baseball, which is, for about 8 years of my life, was a huge connective tissue, if you will, that kind of got me hooked on baseball.
You ended up obviously being a good player. Anybody who plays shortstop in a big town is probably the best player, if not close to the best player, the best player. When did you start to move into that category where you knew had something? And maybe first off, when did you realize you were real fast?
Yeah, well, Little League football. As soon as guys the size of small trucks started running after me, I learned how to be quick and how to get to the sidelines or get low. And those reactive, what I used to make up a term called reaction ability, I gained that ability as a young guy playing football. And then late bloomer, Danny, so until my senior year in high school, I had no reason to believe I would go on beyond high school. But my senior year, I kind of grew a little bit, and I had a particularly good year in baseball. Coming off a season playing for Bud Lathrop in basketball, although I wasn't a great player in basketball, being in that shape, I think, propelled me into that senior year in baseball.
Just before you started high school, your dad would leave the household, and you would have to take on other responsibilities. What was that like for a kid of 13 or 14 years old?
Well, it was difficult. My mom worked, and we had some great help. We had a nanny that didn't charge us any money. She didn't have children growing up. Her name was Opal Swearingen, and she was very influential, helping my mom and in that regard. And it was a tumultuous time. I mean, in 1970, you're a man of a certain age, so you're not alien to that year. And I remember it was unheard of. Your parents didn't get divorced. That just didn't happen.
I didn't have any friends who had divorced parents.
Right, and I had just one, Mark McIntosh, who turned out to be a heck of an athlete locally here and went on to Missouri and has had a tremendous journalistic career in Denver. But Mark and I really teamed up during those years, and I think that helped us both. Sports certainly were another key element of that, being involved in school events and just really being a good student and making sure if my mom needed a little help, then I was there.
What was it like socially at that time for you? Were you too busy? Was sports too involved? Or you seem like the kind of guy who might like to go to the dances and have a good time?
And that's the trouble maybe I had. I'm 3 for 3 in the marriage department. Some people look at it differently. But every girl I've asked to marry me said yes. So I count that as 3 for 3. And although I was single for 17 years, my wife Stacy and I have been married now almost 3 years, and she's been a real bonus in my life, and I've known her since 2007. So I think I took the time this time, Danny, to think it through. And when we're young, we don't know exactly what we want to do, and we change our minds. And I don't think I was any different.
What was the high school life like for you, besides the sports aspect at that point in time? We're of the same age, but for people who are listening who might not know what 1970, 71, 72, that type of time, what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was good, and like I mentioned, the Mayberry factor. And Raytown was a great, school district. Still remains today one of the better districts in town, and very diverse. And I've loved how it's evolved, but. In school, I was on the journalistic side. I was the co-editor of our yearbook.
Right.
I enjoyed that very much. I took a lot of pictures as well. I liked to do the cropping and all that sort of thing. By then, I knew I shouldn't play football if I wanted to live. So I would be on the sidelines taking pictures and that sort of thing. But then just journalistically, I think it's a connect the dots here for you and I, because when I left high school, my drive was to probably pursue either broadcasting or print. I like to write. So composition was a big class for me my senior year in high school, and I just felt like I had some talent to write because my mom would tell me that, and I enjoyed it. So along with history, those were kind of my strengths in high school, outside of baseball. But I liked a number of other things extracurricularly. You mentioned dancing. I wasn't a great dancer, but I played center field, so I could dance a little bit.
Exactly. You were drafted after high school, but apparently the Reds weren't all that interested in you, even though they drafted you. There were 2 drafts then, and I think you've joked that the 12th round of the supplemental draft is like the 80th round of the real one. So they kind of were just waiting around to see if you got any better, I guess. Is that kind of the message they gave you?
They still do today. They call it draft and follow. They're interested in you. They want to keep rights to you till the next draft and see how you go through the spring. In this case, for me, it was a January draft. I had a sophomore season in junior college at Longview, and I had a good year. And then I went into a summer league here in Kansas City that was known as the Casey Stengel League, which was kind of the baby brother of the Van Johnson League at the time. And then the June draft came and went, and I didn't get drafted, so a fellow named Bill Kelso started showing up, a Phillies scout, and longtime pizza restaurant owner here in Kansas City. But Bill finally dug $1,200 out of the Phillies' pocket, and I ran away from a scholarship to KU and Wichita State. It was a terrible decision on the logistics side, but one from my heart, and I just went for it.
You did go for it, and I know that you generally had success all along the way, except at the very start. Your first beginning of professional baseball, you hit 140. Now you drew a lot of walks and stuff like that. But what was it like to decide, hey, I'm going to pursue this professional dream, and then to sputter a little bit right at the beginning?
Yeah, it's funny. There's symmetry there too, because if you look at my back of my baseball card, you'll see that beginning, and then if you look at the end, it's very similar. So it was a real trying time, and I can give credit to my first wife, Vicki, Dustin and Derek, my 2 biological sons, their mother, still one of my great friends today. And we were in Spartanburg, South Carolina, when all this horrible baseball was being performed by me at shortstop for the Spartanburg Phillies, who were owned by the Marshall Tucker Band, by the way, I'll mention.
Nice.
And you remember those guys.
Of course.
So I was terrible. And in June, my manager, Ron Clark, came up to me and said, Bobby, can you do anything else? And I said, well, yeah, I can play second base. And he said, no, I mean like construction or something. 'Cause this isn't going to go very far if you don't make some adjustments. So, however, we're going to send you out to Helena, Montana, which was our half-season rookie team that year, and you're going to play some third base, and Larry Rojas is going to work with you up there. He was our manager, and that's when I met Ryan Sandberg halfway through that year. He was playing short, and we were hitting 1-2 in the order, and I started to gain some confidence. I wasn't kicking every ball that was hit to me, or I saw a scouting report, Danny, you'll like, and it said in the verbiage, all the plus stuff was on the speed, right? Obvious, anybody could see that. But on the verbiage, it said on the defensive side, if he catches it, he throws it in the stands, might be a center fielder.
Well, that it would eventually turn out to be right, but you did have a good season that year, and you were sort of off and running as far as that was concerned. Was it just confidence? Did you know you really could hit, or was it something that Rojas man, anything in particular that keyed your improvement?
No, Larry was kind of the soft glove. Ron Clark was kind of the hard ass, pardon my French. But in baseball back then, your coaches, managers, they had a certain style of coaching, and it was balanced. I think the Phillies understood that. They wanted kind of a mean guy.
Good
but he
cop,
was also
bad
a good
cop.
guy. Yeah, you needed the good guy or bad guy thing there. So to find out if a guy was, capable of improving, or could he take it? Because as well as I do, it truly is a grind, not maybe built for the grind. I knew that I had to really, really bring it every day, and that energy level was important. So once I started learning the grind of it, I think that was the hard part initially. You're going every day, So that was the most difficult part early.
When did you get married the first time? Young?
We got married in a courtroom in Spartanburg in '78 April, and because my father-in-law to be had right intentions, he says, "Well, she's not going to come out and just live with you."
Right. And
so we did the right thing, Right. We knew we were going to do that anyway eventually, right, and have children, and so it was all due process, if you will. We did it the right way in that regard. And I honestly, to this day, Danny, I would say that I couldn't have played one day in the big leagues without Vicky alongside, and then maybe those kids were added motivation.
You were the Carolina League MVP, had a good season at Double-A, and then you make it to the majors basically around age 23. Kind of an interesting deal. You were a September call-up 2 years in a row, so after your first 2 years of Major League Baseball, you were hitting .635. You were 7 for 11. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a story about somebody telling you there's nowhere to go but down.
Larry Boa got me. I got hits my first 4 times up. And so in the shower that night at Veterans Stadium in Philly, he came by me and he says, "Hey, kid," he said, "you know what you're hitting?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." He said, "You're hitting 4,000. You know where you go from there? Straight, down."
Blank
and
down,
so, they got me with that one, and I think I went 0 for 3 the rest of that September. And but, those early Septembers. Remember, we're also with 2 teams that were going after the big prize, and
right,
won it all in '80.
So you got a good look at the business side, I guess, because you didn't go on the roster, which isn't surprising for a September call for the postseason. No World Series ring, and you got a whopping $250 share, right?
Yeah, they did things different back then. There was a lot of ego in that voting room, if you will, when it was time to divvy up the shares. And granted, we're talking about thousands of dollars, and
right,
not hundreds of thousands.
Right.
And so, it was a little stingy in that regard. But, hey, it was a respect thing, and I think we looked at it like, hey, we don't deserve anything. We just came up for I played in 10 games. I mean,
right, do
the math. If you're going to give me something, percentage it out, I guess, that would probably be fair. So they kind of cheapskated me a little bit.
You played winter ball after those first 2 years where you'd made it to the majors. You kind of called it jungle warfare, I believe. Venezuela's really a dangerous place now, but back then I'm sure it was still dangerous, but maybe not like it is now. But what was your winter ball experiences like?
Yeah, well, they'd love me down there because I missed literally 1 game in 2 years with 104 temperature. I'll always remember that one because I still kind of wanted to play, and they wouldn't let me. But when you're 21, 22, 23, whatever I was during those years, I guess 22, 23-ish, and, you're still, if you haven't been hurt, you kind of, every day you're bulletproof. I can go play every day. It was an ego thing, too, to prove back then that you could handle that kind of grind. I mean, day in, day out, night in, night out. And so I was proving that. That was what I was trying to solidify my, I guess my worth in the Phillies' minds. And I drove it home all the way till August of '82, and I finally got a little tired.
You made the major leagues again in '82, but you kind of were around to stay a little bit into '83. How long does it take when you've had those little tastes of it, sent down, brought back up, to feel like you really belong?
Yeah, well, and remember where I came from. So
right,
I had a long line of people who said, "No, you're not quite big enough. You're not quite good enough, strong enough." Any number of enoughs, I just didn't have enough. And there was a short line of people who said, "You know what? You might be able to help us win." And so I always stuck with that short line of people, and I was one of them that kind of believed in my own heart that if given a chance, that I could be a guy, one of those 8 guys that you would want on your team every day. And so I hadn't given that up by any means. And although the Phillies lost confidence, and rightfully so, because I was really inconsistent offensively. Hitting, I often say is the worst girlfriend you could ask for, because it kind of shows up when it feels like it and not trustworthy, if you will. So I always looked at defense and base running as the best wife you could imagine. I could bring that with me every day, and you can count on it, you know.
Right.
And so that's how I approached the game, and tried not to buy into too much of the negativity when it came to hitting, because I saw a lot of guys fall by the wayside. Yeah.
Right, have it eat. Early in your career, hey, I'm a golfer too. Well, I used to be a golfer. I play golf now. Somebody who's seen me recently may not know it, but you played golf on the day of a game when you were at the Phillies, and you made a hole-in-one, and you were playing with the coach and whatever, but hole-in-ones get put in the newspaper. And so your manager had a rule against playing on the day of the game, and then he sees that you made a hole-in-one. Teammates had a little fun of it, put a flag stick in center field. Tell that story a little bit.
Well, it's cute because it made the Hall of Fame, Danny.
Oh, okay.
And I have a small folder. We all do. And when I was up there in 2005 for Sandberg's induction, and then I was up there one other time after that. But the first time I went up, I went down in the archives, and they let you do a little tour through, and they take you over to your file and show you, here's where you are. It's kind of like looking at your own coffin, you know? It's really weird. And so anyway, I opened it up, and one of the several articles that they chose to sort of tell my story at the Hall was that hole-in-one article. And it happened. It was my first one. And you're right, Pat Corrales was the manager, and that was one of the few rules he had, was don't play golf on a game day. But my agent at the time, Richie Bree, lived there. My dad came in town. Manny Trio was becoming a good, close teammate. And he kind of helped stir. He said, it's no problem. We can play 9, and we'll have lunch, and we'll go to the ballpark. So I said, okay. And 9 o'clock tee time, I make a hole-in-one on number 7, and the pro gets wind of it. We don't think nothing of it. Go play the game. The next day, I go into the ballpark, and the clubby tells me that Corrales wants to see me, and that's when the fine was levied, but Sparky Lyle and Tug McGraw had the golf flag already in the locker, ready to go for batting practice. And once Pat saw that and everybody laughing, he rescinded the fine. But nonetheless, it made, a Hall of Fame folder with, a number of things I would rank ahead of that, but in my baseball career. But it mattered. It was kind of a cool thing. Your first hole-in-one, I suppose you've made one, right?
Yeah, I've made 3, actually.
Okay, so I'm
not trying to one-up you. But
Oh, no, I have 4, so don't worry.
Oh, there you go. See, you get to come right back at me. There you go. You did establish yourself in '83, but then what happens a lot of times, teams try to, at least in their mind, get better, and the Phillies acquired Sixto Lezcano, and it hurts your playing time. You didn't play very much the rest of the year. How bittersweet was that to play on a fine team that would make the World Series, but see your role diminish and go away? Yeah,
well, I had my success really in '82 in the first half of the year, and I was playing right field. Of course, 8-time Gold Glover Gary Maddox was in center, and Matthews was in left, Sarge. So, I had the 2 Garys, and because I brought value to the top of the lineup, Rose was able to hit second, and so my hitting group was Rose, Matthews, and Schmidt, and me.
Nice.
Okay, so I learned about hitting.
Yes.
Okay, and none more so than Pete. Pete was a wonderful mentor. I'd like to throw that out.
Right.
Just try to,
balance
cool it with the gambling and the women and all that stuff. But Pete was a good teacher, and I'll always give him that credit. And so that's when I had my real success until I got tired in August, and they took me out of the lineup and started talking about switch hitting. Maybe I could give that a whirl. And I didn't fully heal from that until really the '83 season was over with. And although I had some opportunities to play, I played a lot late in games for defense.
I can't even imagine you're a lifelong right-handed player, and hitting is hard, period. But trying to,
think about it. Brush your teeth.
Also, when you're a right-handed batter, you face right-handed pitchers all the time, and usually the platoon splits aren't that great. If somebody's going to learn to switch hit, usually they're lefty and they learn to hit it a little bit right-handed. This was the opposite. Whose idea was this?
Now, there are freaks, though. Willie Wilson, for example. Right. Willie was able to accomplish this. He was right-handed dominant. And
right.
He didn't even take time in the minor leagues hardly.
Right.
So he's really a bad example. I mean, but anyway, for most of us, you're dead on it. Pete, I remember when I was experimenting in the beginnings of it, he said, look, you need to brush your teeth, open the door, right, do everything you've been doing right-handed, left-handed. Tie your hand, like you broke it, and gain some kind of
dexterity.
Yeah. So, and because I literally could not, if the toilet paper's over on the left side, I'm in trouble.
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel like I'm backwards. And so, but eventually I got decent at it, and I took it into the season in '83. But it didn't last because I didn't have enough time, really, to work on it.
Right. I think we're going to stop right here because I think that, you transitioning over in a trade to the Cubs was a real, I think, defining moment of your baseball career. I think most people, even though you had great accomplishments with the Phillies, remember you as a Cub, and it's sort of like playing for the Red Sox, kind of. If you play for the Cubs for a few years, it's a big defining point. We'll continue with our great conversation with Bob Dernier coming up on Kansas City Profiles, and that's presented by Easton Roofing.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews, and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code ClinkScale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Get a refreshing change of your expectations of a sports bar and restaurant at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Matt Llewellyn's welcoming spot at Clinton Parkway and Cassold covers all the bases, like their own handcrafted beers and all the televisions you need for great sports viewing, but it's the large, varied, and delicious menu that stands apart. From a favorite of mine like the awesome ahi tuna appetizer to great sandwiches, outstanding pizza, and truly fantastic entrees, the 23rd Street Brewery has it all. Matt and his friendly staff make it that much more enjoyable. Food until 10, fun until late. The 23rd Street Brewery is a can't-miss stop when you are in Lawrence. Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256. Welcome back to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. Bob Dernier is our guest and longtime major leaguer, 10 years in the major leagues, and in right before the season in 1984, big trade comes, and you get sent to the Chicago Cubs. I would say that the Cubs got a pretty good deal out of that one. Gary Matthews, Porfi Altamirano, and you for Bill Campbell and Mike Diaz. I mean, that's a pretty good deal. So you always probably like to be in a trade where you guys won the trade. I mean, and
Dallas Green.
Yeah, Dallas Green did it. So you get there, and Dallas Green, who has a reputation for being a very gruff man, to say the least, but he was an important figure in your career.
Yeah, he was my godfather of baseball. Along with Bill Kelso, I couldn't have had two more influential large mammals, too, both of them you mentioned. Dallas was 6'4", I think.
That big shock of gray hair.
Huge, like John Wayne presence. I mean, he just looked like, he came in and tied his horse up out front and walked in the locker room. And everybody gave Dallas that respect. And he, of course, he pitched in the big leagues as well. He was a farm director when I was a minor league player. He was the manager in Philadelphia when I got called up to the big leagues, and he was the GM in Chicago when I was traded to the Cubs. So, along with Rhino and Keith Moreland and Warren Brewstar, Dick Ruthven, Sarge, Boa, we were all former Dallas guys who ended up in Chicago prior to that 84 season.
This was kind of a vintage time for the Cubs, and maybe a part of the time that has made the Cubs even more of a iconic franchise until they won. They were known so much for the failure, but there was nothing sort of like Red Sox-like about the Cubs until this period, because you won. First of all, Harry Carey was the announcer, and you were one of the two superstations. WGN was one, and so people across the country who saw no other baseball except for the game of the week could watch the Braves, and they could watch the Cubs, and the Cubs were on the day all the time. So I remember the birth of my first daughter. We had an Astros-Cubs game on the TV in the room when she was being delivered in the middle of the afternoon. So that created a kind of an aura about the Cubs too, didn't it?
It did. It gave us, we called it, we were the best soap opera available. A live kind of sitcom, if you will. And because we had a particularly good team in '84, and Harry really dressed it up, him and Steve Stone, like only Harry could do, and the Daily Double with Rhino, we were coined a nickname, and all the things that went with that. I think where I relate, honestly, and I grew up, I wanted the Red Sox to beat the Yankees so bad. I didn't have no stake in it, right? I just wanted to see, the underdog. And, of course, the Cub history, and we heard all that. But the guys that were on that team in '84, we never bought into the idea sort of lovable losers, because we were all kind of used to winning.
Right.
And whether it was Ron Say in L.A., or Jody Davis came via the Mets, Durham from the Cardinals, I think. But we had Sud, who had grown up with the L.A. or with the Dodgers, and then he was in Cleveland, Eckersley with Boston.
Right.
These guys knew how to win.
Right.
So we really we were more into that than we were all that other stuff. But the team that it reminds me of, Danny, is the '67 Sox. With
right.
Yaz. Mm-hmm. And I'm 10. I remember that team.
Right.
That's the first Boston team
I lived there,
remember.
so I remember, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I connect them sort of with the Boston beginnings of the Red Sox, and then the '84 Cubs sort of as kind of the beginnings, along with the '69 team, because you can't forget
right.
Fergie and Billy and Ernie and Ron Santo, and all these guys got so close with the '69 Mets,
right,
beating them.
Right.
So all that kind of goes together in some kind of way.
And it's scarred, the fans as well. What's it like playing day baseball all the time? I mean, it's not a common thing for somebody. It's the only place where you're going to play a really significant amount of day games. Yes, they introduced night baseball, and they still don't play that many night games, although they do play at night. What's that like? What's it like for your routine? It just seems to me like sometimes an adjustment might be difficult for a ball player. I'm going to go down this road a little bit. A lot of times you play a ball game. It's 11 o'clock at night. You have a few beers. You're worn out. You go to sleep. Well, the ball game's over at 5 now. I mean, if you try to do that routine, you can get yourself in a little bit of trouble, can't you?
Well, so you got to think through it, right? And so we and the beauty of those years, and some of it was out of control. Society was a little wacky for me.
Yeah.
I mean, sex, drugs, and alcohol. I'll just spit it out. Those things were going on. I don't care if you were a doctor, lawyer, a judge. A ball player, whatever, a secretary, it didn't matter. The way the society was sort of going, there was a lot of things that you had to put a Heisman pose on, right? Or just visiting, whatever. And so I was able to kind of get through that, but with the idea and the thinking, a lot of us were married with children.
Okay.
So what we would do is design, hey, we're going to do it as a group, and there'd be 4, 5, 6 of us, and we were happy hour kings. So at 8:30, see you later, okay?
Right.
And we were in bed at 10:30, 11, and then we would dominate teams that came in there on the road,
Right.
and tried to burn that king.
Right,
You're right.
absolutely. That's cool. Yeah, you finally got you did get your first big contract after that 84 year, but you immediately got hurt. What is it like? There's a lot of responsibility there. No matter how much Cubs fans, it's one of the places where people do really love the team and everything. But this is modern sports. It wasn't $1 billion like they get now, but it was big money at the time. And then you go and get hurt. There must be a lot of pressure in that.
Well, that's the only time to get hurt, Danny. Don't get hurt before you sign the contract. But yeah, all kidding aside, it was the first time I ever got hurt. It broke my heart because I broke my foot.
Right.
And those were my guys,
Right.
I had to have my feet. And so I knew with a wink and a nod sort of to heaven that, okay, what do you want me to do with this, And I was able to play for another 5 years, I guess, sort of with that and other things starting to break down.
Right.
But it is disappointing, and all you had to do is watch recently with Christian Yelich breaking his kneecap. And that's how I did mine, with a foul ball off the foot.
Oh, wow.
And even the kid Camargo went down with a shin. It looked like it might have broke it. Baseball's hard, and injuries are a part of it. And the truth is, most of us get hurt. The guys who can really play and don't get hurt, well, we know there's statues and plaques, and
right.
and they have a great blessing to manage that. But I couldn't play. I wouldn't change my style of play. I was always in the dirt, diving everywhere, trying
Right.
to make plays, and I was going to get dinged up.
Right. The part of the thing that got you that contract was good offensive play and base stealing and things like that. Let's talk a little bit about that and your defense. You won the Gold Glove in 1984 as well. You were an infielder, and I think most people who grow up playing shortstop could be a very good outfielder, and you could really run. Talk about that transition and how much pride you felt in your craft.
Yeah, well, you can see, I did
right in front of me.
I made it center because if I had to pick one thing that would sort of make a statement, about kind of what I did, that was it. And it was a real, because I think it takes desire to go out and play defense every day at a high level, and especially at Wrigley, because we had the sun and the wind
and the wall is cement.
Oh my God, yeah, it's total brick action out there with ivy to rip you up to the vines, and metal doors. Okay, and I touched at least all of those things I just named, in light ways. Fortunately, I never was dumb enough to run into it. I get back there or you don't, and I sort of proud that. Wrigley Field with the respect that it deserved. I knew Babe Ruth played there. Willie Mays caught balls there. I knew Gale Sayers ran footballs there. So I went out there with a Raytown attitude that I'm going to be the best that's ever played out here. And I think that respect and the willingness to go out and work at it, I took a lot of balls off the bat in batting practice, learning the wind and gauging, knowing the sun during different parts of the game. And it was also a way for me to bridge relationships between me and my pitching staff. I had pitchers come up to me and say, "Why aren't you in the lineup? I mean, I got to have you," and that was the
right.
That was the real motive.
When you were really, the first injury started a succession of injuries the rest of your career that you would have to fight through. So when it came time that you had to give it up, was it a little less difficult because your body had just failed you and you just couldn't go? I mean, I know you gave one more spring training a try and you're just doing routine running and everything, and you didn't have the explosiveness you needed to play. Did that make letting it go any easier?
Well, at 33, I knew I was kind of an old running back, and yet I needed to make sure I prepared as well as I could to see if it did feel like I was done. After 89, when I went home, I thought right away, that might have been it. That might have just done it. But I was going to reserve that until I sort of woke up from Christmas and New Year's and stuff, and then started kind of doing some stretching, and the Mets wanted me to come to camp. I didn't really want to play for the Mets. That was the other thing. I'd been playing against them for so long.
Right.
But, hey, you lose that if somebody's wanting to pay you to play, you're going to lose.
Right.
Right. I didn't really care that much, but I remember my thinking that was like, it's a Mets, and I really don't want to play in New York, really. But anyway, so I tried, and I knew when I tried to get out of the gate, that moment that it takes to go, and that little reaction ability, I just didn't have that same thing. But both hamstrings had been torn.
Right.
And so I couldn't get as elastic as I had been.
Right.
So I knew. In other words, nobody had to come up and say, "Hey, Bobby, if Danny, say you're the GM, you didn't have to come up and tell me, hey, you need to go home."
Right.
I just knew myself that it was time. And also, on the other side of that coin, I really looked forward to being home. I'll say that now like I did then. I looked forward. My kids were 10 years old. I wanted to be around them more often, and so that helped push me. And I also I didn't have any resentments. There was nobody at fault or any of that. I was like very grateful because there was like 3 people that thought I'd play one day.
Right, exactly. So in the quote in here, it says you spent 18 months on the golf course, so that there probably was some transition to trying to fuel the fact that you're in you're in a competitive enterprise. You're wired as a competitive person. Was playing a lot of golf part of trying to, feed that a little bit and just transition into quote-unquote real life?
I think it was just I still needed that action. Like I had to compete against some game, So golf was the chosen game, still is today. And maybe you can relate this in some ways because unless you're doing it day in and day out, and you've been in broadcasting for so long, like there's little things about when you were doing baseball day in and day out for 12 years, I could really not explain to anybody, including my wife, how hard some of that stuff was, okay? Or the grind of it, or some of the minutia. And so I couldn't explain it. How could I really explain it to anybody else? I just I kind of compartmentalized that. I put it in my own little drawers along the way, but I always knew from day one there is an end day, so I never feared it. Like if it was 2 days in, or that first half season, if they just said bye, I said, well, hey, man, I gave it a shot,
right?
Or if it was 12 years later,
right? And
so and the people that wanted to say, I remember that spring, like, oh man, you should have played another year. I mean, I had a stock answer for him. Where have you been the last 12 years?
Yeah, right.
So, it's really hard to explain.
Right, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the path you've taken to now. And you mentioned you're 3 for 3. The last 3, I think, has made you a very happy man, not the first part that hasn't. Talk about meeting the wife that you have right now?
Yeah, Stacy, Miss Stacy Lynn Leibowitz, I met in Phoenix, Arizona, but she's from upstate New York City, so she's a Yankee fan.
Okay.
Her parents also, her mother, I think, came through the Bronx via Puerto Rico. So there's a lot of Northeast in her, but she moved to the Southwest with her brothers shortly after. Both her parents died very young, when she was only 9 and 19. Both of them in horrible car accidents. So it's really a tragic story for her. But she is one of the most giving, honest people I think I've ever been around, and probably as thoughtful as I like to think I am, if not more so, about others. But she really has sort of glued this thing. I've known her 12 years now, but I chickened out for 9 years. I kept giving her excuses, like I shouldn't be married again. I need more time in prison, right? You know what I mean? I had yet to serve my sentence, but she convinced me, I think, over time that I was more than capable, and I think she's just brought out the best in me. She's been great with my kids. She's a good bridge. She's younger than me, and enough so where she's like in between my kids and me.
Right.
Kind of a perfect little stop there. And our family's a little bit like that anyway. My brother's 13 years younger than me, and so we have a lot of that. And she brings so much, especially to my granddaughters. You know what I mean? Because Gramps, I'm old Gramps.
Right.
I just want them to play golf. I'm useless otherwise. So she's helped bring a lot in that regard. Now I've noticed they like being around Gramps a lot more over the past 5 years.
There you go. How'd you meet?
Well, we met. I was out to dinner with Gary Matthews Jr. Sarge, still one of my closest friends, and his son Junior invited me out to dinner. I was coaching with the Cubs in spring training of 2007. And we were at a dinner place, a restaurant called City Hall in downtown Scottsdale. And you might have breezed through there at some point in your travels.
Yeah. Yes.
So it was like 9 o'clock at night, and we had to get up at 4 every day. So I'm saying my so longs as I walked by the entrance into the little bar area. On the way out the door, I saw 3 blondes and a brunette sitting at the same table, and being single.
Yes.
For now 5 years at that point, the least I can do is go in and have 1 beer before I go home.
Exactly.
Strict rules, and I adhered to that. But if I was driving, but I did, and I'm so glad I did, because that's that night that I did meet her, and she was the brunette.
I was going to say Leibowitz, I would have guessed.
She stood out. Yeah, she stood out, and in a soft way, we had a mutual friend. That's what really made that happen. A lady named Sonia Brown, who was a mutual friend, as it turned out, of both of ours. And she was at the table, not at that particular time when I walked in, but came up later, and that's what made it happen.
Right.
And once I found out they were connected, then I called Sonia.
Right.
I was total chicken. I couldn't ask her for a number right there, right on the spot. I had to kind of come in the side door.
When you go back to Chicago now, you go to do the Fan Fest, and you were a coach there too. That seems like it's kind of a, the certain Fan Fests I think are maybe, bigger deals than others. The Royals have developed theirs into a good, but Cardinals, Red Sox, and Cubs, those seem to be big deals. And like I said, it's almost the kind of thing where even if you just played a few years and not, 15 years, you're a Cub. Yeah,
it's a very unique relationship. And of the, I don't know, there's 30 in all 4 of the major sports, so 120 teams. At the big league level, I can't think of one other organization that has a relationship between the Cub fans, I'll say, and the players and former players quite like they do. The Yankees, obviously, 27 World Championships. The Red Sox this century have been unbelievable, but then 100 and however many years as well. There's a lot of reasons, the Green Bay Packers, you could go on and on. Lakers, I don't know, Celtics. So the Cubs, I think, have that real unique generational sort of thing that very few have. And being a part of that lore, I can tell you, only from my own experience, they treat me like I'm a guy that walks out of the corn now. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's really cool, and I really enjoy it, and I suppose I'll take that to my baseball corn.
Right, there you go. And I know there are quotes about saying, hey, some people have regrets about their career, could have done something different. You seem to look at it completely in a positive way, and that it's a great memories for you.
No doubt. It was a gift. It was a blessing. And as a little boy, I remember my grandmother's, I don't remember which one or if it was both, but I remember hearing these words that if you have some faith and believe that dreams come true, then they can. So I felt like all along the way, if they don't believe I can do it, I believed I could. Even from the time I was 6, I really didn't think I was ever good enough until my senior year in baseball. And I thought, I'm the best shortstop in the state of Missouri, according to what they wrote. So I got to at least have a chance. And so I built on that and on from there. And so I try to share that with kids today, that and whatever the vocation is that's got your heart, you believe in it, you like it that much, go for it. If other people tell you you're not good enough, go for it a little bit more, because they do come true with a little faith.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.